Hey there, YouTube! Welcome on back to Artichokedip. My name is Rob, solo tabletop gamer. So, in this video, I'm going to talk. Well, actually, I should back up before I get into the next game system I'm getting into, what I'm going to be using, and all that stuff. So, before I get into the video, if you like the video, please click the like button. And if you have not subscribed, please click the subscribe button, followed by the bell icon. Every time I upload a brand new video, you will get notified so you don't miss one. So what I have been doing recently is trying to figure out a better video system, if you will. So I have been using an old Sony Handycam with little SD cards and how to record it, and I would have to upload that to the computer and then do the editing and then transfer that over into a movie file and then upload that to YouTube, and it was just a lot of work. And I've been looking for a while for a much simpler way to make videos so it takes a lot of that work out of it, and also at the same time be able to improve the overall video quality, because I noticed a lot of people said, hey, this stuff's real blurry. Well, yeah, it's old technology, if you will. And so I have been researching, trying different things, trying different programs, some that have just been complete disasters that just really have not worked well for me. And I think I have finally dialed it in and got it exactly the way I wanted it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy the new video layout. And well, without further ado, let's get into the video and let's talk about RuneQuest. So I'm going to do some RuneQuesting right here. You guys talked about it. You guys voted, hey, let's see this. Now, if you're not familiar with the RuneQuest system, through the next series of videos, I'm sure you will be, but, so how I got into this was, oh man, few years back, I read a lot of reviews on it, and people were saying this is such a great system. If you're looking to an alternative to D&D, if you're just looking for a much more story orientated, if you will, game system, you know, the list goes on. And so I said, what the heck, I'm gonna try it. So I ordered it, and I fell in love with this system very quickly. It is such a overall great story system. Character creation is simple, which I like. Character creation really doesn't take you very long in this system. As a matter of fact, you roll up your attributes, and at that point, you take your bonuses from those attributes, you apply them to your skills. You get a set list of skills, and from there, that will determine your hit points, determines your attack and defend bonus, your damage bonus, so on and so forth, as the list goes on and it goes through it. But when you first crack the book and you look at it, it can look very daunting, and it can look very, how do I put this, intimidating, if you will. But after a few pages of reading, you realize just really how simple the game is. Now, the funny thing about this was, years and years and years back, my favorite hobby store I used to go to, which was called RuneQuest. I know it's funny, named after the board game system. Anyways, when they were going out of business and they were selling these huge lots of books, and it was like $20 for a stack of books, and I had picked up a couple lots of them, and it had the third, let me see, I can't remember if that's a second, no, it's a second edition, I believe this would have been the second edition of RuneQuest right here, and this was published by Mongoose Publishing. And I had it in my library for a while. Never really did a whole lot with it, because at that time I was just like really into third edition. Everything was third, and third edition D&D, of course. And after I had picked up this system and went through it, I was like, man, this is so cool. I started to flip open some of the books and go through it, and I noticed very quickly the systems are compatible. I relate that to if you were to be playing, let's say, 5th edition, have you, and you decide there's some old spells on basic or advanced D&D that you'd really like to integrate into your system. It's really not hard. They're actually very compatible, and everything's right there for you to use just to put out onto the table. Maybe a couple of small things you would have to tweak versus if you're using basic. It's going to measure that spell's radius effect, if you will, in inches, considering it had the mind thought of miniature skirmish play compared to the systems we have today, which is everything's marked down in either feet or meters, what have you. You get what I'm getting at there. It's very simple to convert it and look at it and say, okay, if it's this many squares, that's going to be this many feet. You got that. Same thing with this, I've noticed. When I go through the books, the templates are the same. Everything, it's really, really cool. But I enjoy this system the most. So this is the system I'm going to go with. I'm going to play, and I'm going to really get into. Now, I was sitting on the fence, and I was thinking, okay, do I want to go through, how do you put that? I wanted to do something homebrew rather than a cookie cutout for the game, have you, and I wanted to do something with RuneQuest to a system, not a system if you will, but a setting that I really enjoy. So what I decided to use as my setting is out of this book right here, Coral. I don't even know if this is even in circulation anymore. This came out a long time ago. This is published before '08, before the great, economic collapse, if you will. And so I don't even know if they still offer this or not. They may not. It was written for 3.5 D&D. That's how far back we're going. But the cool thing I like about it is it's a setting, if you will, if you wanted to integrate elves into your game system, but you wanted to broaden the horizon rather than just saying, hey, we got a couple of either woodland elves or high elves or whatever, however you're doing that. And here they are. This actually fleshes out the entire wooded area, the kingdom, if you will, along with some areas that fit very well into the story system. So I decided that's the way that I want to go. Instead of just playing, I wanted to tweak it up a little bit. I wanted to do something a little bit different with RuneQuest. I'm finding I enjoy this with RPG games, particularly when you take a couple of systems and you kind of meld them together and you make something really cool and unique. It tends to make for a more unique, story-rich gaming session. I meant to say. I can't talk tonight. So that's where I'm gonna be gaming. That's where the game is going to take place. It's going to be the backdrop, if you will, and we're going to see how things play out with that. Now, some of the other books that I'm going to be using for just encounters, really, I just picked this one up. This is the newest RuneQuest Beastery, and really cool. It's a really cool system. I would really like to pick up the player manual for this, or the main core manual for this edition. It's a little pricey right now, and Well, with everything going on right now in the world, I'm thinking I just have other things at this moment that I probably should focus my money on. I'm not going to go any further than that. I really, we all know how crazy it is right now, and not just in our country, but the world over with this pandemic and everything else going on. But yeah, I think you guys get it, and so maybe down the road, when we cross that bridge and I can find it, I will pick up the main core rule book for this and upgrade to this particular edition of RuneQuest. But until then, I have this edition. Yeah. And this is the edition I'm going to play on. So, the other part of the video I wanted to show you and get into was just to give you a brief overview of how I created basically my setting, if you will, and how I went about doing that. So let's move on to that. Let's take a look, see, and I'll show you some of the questions that I asked myself, how I answered them, and how it really helped me build my system pretty efficiently, if you will. All right, my friends, let's go and check that part out of the video. All right, my friends. So, what I did here when I was sitting down and I said, okay, I want to play RuneQuest, but even though it takes place in the Bronze Age, if you will, does it mean that I have to stick to that 100% without deviation? No, I don't. And that's what I decided. Hey, I want to do something homebrew, something that I'm going to enjoy, and I can kind of let my imagination flourish, if you will, and go from there. So you're probably asking me at this point, well, how do we do that? How do I do that, Artichoke? So this is how I did it. And I'm going to lay it out there and show you how I did it. I just got me a piece of notebook paper and I wrote down my RuneQuest game ideas. The setting I had already decided on. The setting was the Elven Kingdom of Corwell. So I asked me these 7 questions. The kingdom is actually, let me rephrase that. I put out these 7 ideas that I had, and then down here I wrote out how I answered the questions and how I wanted to design the game. And that way I would have everything right there for me, and it would give me an idea how I want to make my characters, how I want to move this thing ahead, and really help streamline everything, if you will. So the first thing is, the setting is in the Elven Kingdom of Corwell. Elven Kingdom of Corwell, as I was explaining to, this is a very cool book, and like I said, when you go to do your own RPG, you don't have to get this. If you can find it and you enjoy playing this character class, right on, man. I mean, yeah, this would definitely be something for you to pick up because you would really enjoy it. But if not, I don't know if I would really put forth the money for it, particularly because it'll probably just sit on your shelf and collect a whole lot of dust. And that's the last thing that you want. Now, there's a lot of cool information in here. It gives you a lot of great ideas for layouts, the House of the Ancestors. I'm not going to get into this a whole lot because I'm using this as a backdrop. I'm not using this book exactly to the way it was designed, word for word. The reason why is very simple. This is D&D 3.5, if you will, and I don't really want to use everything straight out of here. As a matter of fact, when it comes to the game mechanics and character creation and all that, it's straight out of RuneQuest, and it'll stay that way. So this, I'm just trying to explain to you how I do this, so you guys, it'll help you guys at home. And once I get into this game system a little bit more, maybe you'll find something you guys kind of enjoy, and it'll help you with your games. And maybe, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find, there's a cool map in here, and I just wanted to show you guys the overall area of possibility. There it is. So right here, and I know it may be kind of hard to see, because even just looking at this with my own eyes, it's a little hard to see, but I'm going to bring it up a little bit closer. As you can see in there, this is the Corwell village. There is all kinds of stuff goodies that it can give me here that I can use for NPCs. I can put stuff into. I can create a large amount of resources for my characters. And out of this book alone, just using this as a backdrop, and the NPCs it already gives me that are pre-generated, is just going to be a great resource unto itself. Now, of course, that's the way this book was designed, right? It's a campaign, not really a campaign setting. This is more of just a little snapshot, if you will, in the world of Corwell. That's all it is. This is just a standalone. It was written for the idea to play this village the way it is, but I think, like a lot of people do, they will pick books up because of the fact some of the extra spells and class features that it's going to give you that a lot of main core rule books are not. So it's a cool resource to have for that. And like I said, I picked it up because elves, half elves, they're one of my favorite character classes to use, and that's the reason why I use it. So this setting is going to be the Elven Kingdom of Corwell. 1. The kingdom is on the brink of war with. So we're going to answer that. Who is the kingdom on the brink of war with? How I answered that was the orc tribes of Ogalash. 2. The root cause of the conflict. Because this is very important, right? Why are they at war? I mean, well, they're on the brink of war. Tensions are high right now, and they're on the brink of war. And I answered that with here, territory disputes of the caverns of gloom. They continue to occupy and increase in numbers. Now, that comes straight out of here. And what I decided to do with that for this system was, hey, I can put 9 levels or 9 different caverns, dungeons, however you want to refer to that, in these caverns, right? So that's going to give me a whole nother different aspect of this, my game, if you will, and an area to unlock and to be able to explore on top of what I already have in the Kingdom of Corwell. So 3, what would the loss from all-out war be? So in my game system, what would that mean? And I answered that: loss of Caverns of Gloom and Corwell Forest. If they were to lose it, at that point, the orcs would dominate and take over that area. So I asked the question, what are the gains from war? What would they gain from war? And I wrote down there, regain complete control and run all unwanted monsters that now will wander into Corwell Forest from the caverns. So as you can see, I'm already kind of setting up how, just answering these simple questions, how the encounters are going to be encountered, how they're going to run. It's pretty much doing a lot of the work for me, if you will, without having to sit down and try to come up with this just on the fly as I go, and I can spend more time playing and less time going, let me see, where was that? Let me, okay, roll that, okay, go. You understand what I'm getting at. Number 5, I asked myself, who is the main antagonist? So who is the main antagonist in this whole entire endeavor right here? And this is Gragnol, the orc chieftain. Now, I asked myself this question: what encounters are expected? So what can I expect that's going to come up? Not rare encounters, not encounters that are specific to a particular area or advancement of a storyline, if you will, but just the run-of-the-mill, these are the encounters that are going to come up, and I can kind of expect them in this world. How I answered that was, we're going to see orcs, obviously, giants, trolls, cave trolls, ogres, wyverns, goblins, and giant spiders, right? We're in a forest, and there's this dispute over the cavern of gloom, if you will. So I figured that fits into it. It makes a lot of sense for what I got going on there. So I wrote down, now this is getting into the RuneQuest side of it. And the one thing about RuneQuest I'm going to tell you is it's huge on this, the cults, okay? Now, the best way I can explain to you how cults work within RuneQuest, so, and I'm going to use D&D as an example. D&D, you have your deity, obviously, and then you have your alignment. And if you look at spells, only certain spells are accessible to certain alignments. Not all of them, but some of them. Particularly when you look at clerics and paladins and whether they're good, they're evil, what have you. RuneQuest takes this to a whole next level. And what RuneQuest does is you are part of a cult. You gain your spells like a cleric would through that cult, is how you learn them, unless you become a rune priest, what they call it. And then at that point, if you become a rune priest, you can create spells, if you will, by the way that it's written in the rule system within RuneQuest. Now, with that out there, they have these cults. Basically, what it gets back to is the cult follows this deity. So whether you see your character being good, evil, neutral, what have you, that's the cult or the deity that they basically align themselves with. And out of that, these are the spells that you have access from following that deity. So I wanted to explain that real quick and get that out of the way, because when I explain this next part, it's going to make a lot more sense to you if you know that going into it. So, what cult does the antagonist belong to? So, if the orc chieftain Gragnol, he follows a deity, Zorak Zoran, and it is a war deity. His runes are that of darkness, death, and disorder. He can control undead, which is very important how I put this in there. He has 2 rune priests within his ranks that are able to summon skeletons and zombies, and they are underneath Gragnol's direct control. So you can see when I'm talking about how when I said right here, here's my encounters, the characters are going to be expected to encounter normal randomized encounters that they will encounter in the forest or their other travels. And then there's going to be story specific type of encounters, which we can see here, which will be coming from the main antagonist, which is going to be the undead. Now, does that mean all the undead that they encounter are going to be from him? I don't know that yet. I haven't even played one game session yet. I have just put this together, and I wanted to be able to show you how I did this, how this helped me flesh things out, basically, by writing them down and actually looking at them and asking myself these questions. Hey, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And being able to write them down, you can kind of see how the story is coming together. You can see how the game flow is going to go, and it's just going to help at that point be like, yeah, okay, this is maybe I should do a character like this, maybe I should do a character like that. So that's how I did that part of it, which really did help when it came to character creation. Now, when it came to character creation is very simple in this game system. As a matter of fact, let me just touch off on that real quick. So the thing I like about this system, and as you notice, I got a lot of pages marked here. I've used this quite a bit, but it is a very simple system. Let me just go straight to the character sheet. It'll be much easier to show you. So when you make your character, there's a few simple questions you have to ask yourself. Social class, they have a table in which you roll on. Now, depending on how you roll, you could be a peasant, a townsman, of nobility. It's going to depict where your starting gear, how much starting gear, and how well of starting gear that you have. Nationality, I really didn't get into the nationality. I left that out. Cults, the cult, I'm going to explain that with my characters here in a moment. And then, of course, what you would expect to see in any type of RPG system. What kind of race is your character? The gender, if you wanted to put that in there. The age, residence, where they exactly live. You know, all questions in my type of game systems that I really just, they don't really seem relevant to me, so I don't use them. But you have these abilities right here: strength, constitution, size, intelligence, power, dexterity, and charisma. Now, if you're using a human character, you roll 3d6 for all of these, and you add up the numbers and you put them in there. But this is the cool thing about this game system, and it's what I really like about it, and it's really cool. Because I'm going to throw this out there, and I think it's at this point, if you've never played this game before, this is going to be a little bit of a culture shock to you, and it might be a little hard to wrap your mind around at first, but once you play it, you realize really what a cool system it is. There are no classes in here. There is no wizard or sorcerer or rogue or any of that. None of that. So, but I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself. I'm going to explain that here in a minute. But when it comes to creating a character, let's just stay on page with that. You can absolutely play an encounter if you wanted to in this system. It's very simple how they do it. As a matter of fact, they give you all the statistics. Now, there are certain, how do I put this, recommendations that they say they wouldn't recommend you playing a very low intelligent creature unless you wanted to, based on pretty much you're going to be disadvantaged at just about everything. But if you're not limited to it, you can if you want. For example, if you wanted to play a gargoyle, you could. It shows you right here in all the statistics how to roll, how to add those up and generate your abilities, and where their average scores are going to fall. Now, I decided to go with elves. It's got an entire section right here on elves, explains them and tells you how to add up their abilities, where the average comes in, where they would recommend average hit points, so on and so forth. But the cool thing about the game that I love is the fact that, you know, you are not limited to a class. You can play literally anything you want to in here, and it outlines how they recommend you roll that character up and the abilities. Now, the beauty of this game that I love, this is the thing that I love the most. Once you roll up your attributes, at that point, as you progress through the character creation process, and you go through that, you're going to get your skill tree, like such here. Here's a skill tree. This is knowledge. So once you, let's just take a look at knowledge here real quick. And a little too ahead of myself. Where did I put that? They pack so much information into just a small, there it is. So right here, you can see with knowledge, all your skills pertaining to knowledge, you would look at your intelligence and you'd look at your ability score. If you had a 15, you would add +5 to that skill. Power. Now, if you had a high power, which would be, let's say 19 right here, right? You would have a +5. So you would take those two and you would have a +10 that you would add to these skills right here. So evaluate treasure would be 5. So you would have 15%. Read own language, you would have 20%. Now there are more skills in here that you can choose from if you wanted to use those in your game system. You're not required to, but I think you get the point. Now, let's talk about the abilities. You understand how the skills work based off of your abilities. There's a formula for your knowledge skills, your manipulation skills, your perception skills, your stealth skills, and it outlines that right here. It's very simple. It shows you how to take those abilities, how to add those up, and then at that point it determines your percentile, if you will, for how well you do at those skills, right? Now, let's talk about the abilities a little bit. Some of these you're already going to be familiar with and you're already going to know. If you play RPG games, strength is just that measure of your strength, your brute physical strength. Constitution. Constitution is exactly what it sounds like. It's your health. Now, when it comes to your hit points, your Constitution score is your hit points, but you're also going to add your size. Let me get to the hit points here because it's size, and there was one other thing that, here, size and power. There we go. So you would, let's say you had a Constitution roll of a 16. So you would come down here and you would look at this chart. With a Constitution roll of a 16, I would have 16 hit points right off the bat. I would look at my size. Let's say my size, I was an 18. That'd give me a +2 to my Constitution. Now I'd be up to an 18 for hit points. Now let's say my power was 15. Well, I wouldn't get anything. But 18 hit points isn't too bad. That's pretty good. And we're going to go a little bit further into it so you understand the game system a little bit more. So your size is just that. It's a reflection of how large your character is, and it plays a large part into a lot of skills and the way that they work. And it's very cool. If you ask me, it's a very balanced system. Size will come into play with defense and parry, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But just know size is more than just, hey, if you look at D&D and you get the description, oh, my character's 5'3" and 194 pounds. No, it actually does have bearing on the way that the system runs, which is really, really cool. I really do enjoy that. So you get to your intelligence. Your intelligence is just that. Your intelligence, your ability to be able to think, look, reason, problem solve, so on and so forth. Now, getting to the next one, which I think this is really cool. It makes this system stand apart from all the other systems I think I've played out there and really enjoyed so far to this point. And that is power. So power, and let me back up. In this system, every character has access to magic. Every character. Magic is not limited to a particular class. That's where I said there are no character classes here. So there's a big advantage to having a high power score. How they do this, which I really, really do like, it's really cool, is the fact that when you look at, let me get to spells here real quick so we can see. So, all spells have a cost, okay, if you will. This one, Mind Link, I'm just going to point to that and read you the brief description. So, Mind Link has a range of 160 meters, stackable, no limit. And I'm going to get to that in a minute, because why this system is really cool. So, it has a duration of 15 minutes and is reusable. This spell allows the participants to communicate telepathically and use each other's magical abilities, such as knowledge of a spell and power. Any participant in a mind link may use the spell knowledge and power of other participants without their consent. That's pretty rude. Mind-affecting spells such as Befuddle and Phantasm are transferred through mind link, but harmonize with effects the body is not. This flow only goes to people directly in mind link with the target. If a ruin priest is affected by an attack of someone he is in mind link with, his allied spirit will not be, and can get him out of it with a dispel magic. Okay, so there's a brief description. If you are using this spell, and let's say you had 17 on your power ability, it costs you 1 point. Now, stackable, no limit. You could put all 17 points into this one spell, burn them all up at one time, but at that point, this spell is just hellaciously powerful. Now, that really makes it difficult for your encounters to be able to, well, defend against that. And that's the cool thing about this system that I really do like. All of the spells in here have a point system to them, and just depends on how powerful you want to make that spell is how many points you put into it. There is a downside, though. The downside is the fact that it takes you a while to recover your power. And let me get into that a little bit and explain it, because it looks cool. It's a very cool system. It's cool how you can, at that point, decide if you're allowed to boost that spell, how much you want to boost that spell, and how rude you really want to be with that spell. But the downside to it is, let me just read this to you real quick so you can see it. Power use. Power is used in casting spells. If Rurik casts Blade Sharp 4 on his sword, his power of 12 becomes 8. At the strike rank, he casts the spell. It will be at 8 for resisting other spells arriving after that moment, and until he throws other spells, at which point it will be reduced further. Power is regained at the rate of 1/4 the character's total power every 6 hours.
Thus, Rurik with a power of 12 would regain 3 points every 6 hours until all power expended has been regained. So you can see kind of how they built in. That really kind of makes everything balanced, if you will. I mean, if you wanted to play a character to where you were just a complete rude spellcaster, you could. But the fact that, well, you're not going to regain your power is, back very quickly. It's going to take you time. So you have to be, mindful and resourceful of how much power you actually have. And if you're not, that could have severe repercussions. So moving on from there, your next ability you have is dexterity. Dexterity is just that. It's a measure of how dexterous your character actually is. And of course, you will see that reflect with your defense bonus. And that is, that's something to consider. And then, of course, your charisma. And your charisma is just, in fact, what it is. In this game, it is not a measure of, like some games, of how beautiful your character is. Charisma is a reflection of just that. How charismatic is your character? Is your character charismatic enough to where he could, in fact, be a silver-tongued devil, if you will, and have the ability to talk himself out of a potentially fatal situation? Or maybe bluff a king into maybe he could swindle him out of a lot of gold and get some help from him the whole entire time. He's thinking your evil character is there to help him when he's really there just robbing him blind. Just food for thought. So that's how the abilities work in this game system. I love that fact that they do that. It's really, really cool. Now, this game system is percentile. So it's not a D20, not a D6, all percentile. And everything is very skill heavy. You're going to relate back to your skills quite often. Everything you do, you're going to do a skill check for it. Now, in this game system, if, let's say, for instance, I am going to try to climb a wall, okay, and I'm using my character that I created here for my game system, he has a 30% to do that. So the way that this would be done, and it's very simple. So the initial percentage would be decided as to the difficulty of this task. Let's say it's a 30%. Well, he has 30%. So I would roll this 98, removing 30. I would have a 68%. He would be unable to climb that wall. That's just the way it is. In the percentile system, you want to be at or below the number. Now, if you were to roll a, for example, 100, we'll say, or let's do even better than that. If you were to roll a 99%, now most of you are probably thinking that's a good thing, that's excellent, 99, woohoo. No, 99's bad. That's a fumble. You have failed at whatever you have done. Now, if you were to roll way below that, let's say you were to roll a 11%. That's even better. That's how this game works. In this game, a 98 to 99 or 100% is considered an epic fail. It's a fumble. The lower you roll, the better it is. Now, when I'm trying to get to their exact wording of this to explain to you how it works, let me just get to that section. So basically, I believe it's in skills is where they put that. Okay, here's what I'm looking at. So a critical fumble is just that. In fact, it's a fumble. But if you do very well on a roll, it's at that point you have a percentage to be able to take away some of that knowledge and focus on improving that particular skill through training. So an example is right here. Training. The fighting bands will test an adventurer wishing to learn how to use a particular weapon. If the natural ability, the plus or minus, given to attack or parry by various characteristics, plus the basic chance of the character with the weapon of choice, add up to less than 25% chance of success with the weapon, the band will train the character up to a 25% ability. And there's a way, without getting too much further into that, I think you can see how that works out. So how this works, as you go through this system and through combat and using your skills, if you do extremely well, at that point you're going to improve that particular skill. Now, what does that mean? Well, right here, a roll of 01 through 05 on a D100 will always mean a successful attack or parry. Conversely, a roll of 96 through 100 on a D100 will always mean an unsuccessful attempt at whatever is being attempted. As you can see, at whatever is being attempted. Note, natural ability only affects the basic chance to hit. A natural ability add 5% will not continuously add 5% to all training and experience gained. So, as you can see in this game, the more you really flesh out your character to the way how you play that character. So if you have a character with a high power ability score and you're constantly just throwing spells right and left and you're doing really well, and you start really ramping up the experience in that and growing those skill sets, of course you're going to be more versed at magic. And I guess you could relate that to, hey, this is a wizard. If you're really good at combat and you're using a whole lot of combat and you're really increasing that, then at that point, I guess if you wanted to, you could identify with that character as being a fighter, if you will, or a knight. If you find your character is doing really well at moving silently, hiding in the shadows, and is able to open traps very easily and is able to get in and out of areas undetected very quickly, well, then at that point, I guess you could identify that as being a thief. But getting back to, there are no classes. There's none. It just depends how your character is going to develop by the way that you actually play the character, which is cool. Okay, that's the explanation of how your abilities really affect everything in this game and how they play out. Now let's take a look at, here's my character that I rolled up. This is Endril Stormmoon. His social class is a townsman. His race is an elf. Now, his attack bonus, he gets plus 20% for his attack, which is really, really cool. Now, don't let this confuse you, because this can be very, very confusing. A lot of people will see this and think, well, wait a minute, do I add? No, you don't. As a matter of fact, you would take your roll, and at that point, with the 20 I have there, this is going to become a 9%. His attack has critically attacked. It has done extremely well. Same thing with the parry bonus, and we're going to get into the mechanic system, if you will, here in a moment, how this works. And then, of course, defense bonus. Same thing with the defense bonus. You're going to take that, but you're going to subtract that from what is rolled. Oh, look there, another 26%, right? His defense is 20, which means he gets 6%, which means he did very well at defending himself. Now, let's talk about the combat way of it a little bit more, because this is also another cool part to this game that I really do enjoy. That is your strike rank. So unlike a lot of other games where you're going to roll the 20-sider, you're going to add your dex bonus, and that's going to be your initiative, plus whatever bonuses and mods you have to it. This game system takes all of that out of it. You don't have that. And it makes combat more efficient, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. So when you roll up your character, you go to, at that point, your strike rank tree, if you will, right here. And you're going to look at your size, and your ability score of your size is going to give you a point system. And then you're going to look at your dexterity. That is also going to give you a point. You're going to add that up, and then at that point, that's going to become what they call your base strike rank. Now, base strike rank for my character here is 3. Now, when you get a weapon, the weapon is also going to have a strike rank that's going to be attached to that weapon. An example here, his scimitar that he's using is a strike rank 5. It does 1d8 plus 1 damage, and it has 20 hit points. We'll get into that here a little bit more in a minute. Like I said, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole with this whole thing. I'm just explaining the basics of the game. So, if you've never played this before, you'll be a little bit more familiar with it, and it might be a game system perhaps you would enjoy playing and you'd like to put into your library. So anyways, when it comes to strike ranks, there are 12 strike ranks per round of combat. At that point, the encounter, your characters, you would look at your strike rank, and of course the lowest one is going to act first, and then it's going to play out to the highest, and then that combat round is over, if you will. At that point, you would adjust your hit points and ammunition, so on and so forth, and then the next combat round would start with those strike ranks already in place and go from there. It's very cool because of the fact that it gives you more time to be able to focus on the game, and it's less time rolling dice and adding stuff. You're just looking at the number, you're going to the action, and if you ask me, it's way better than a lot of other systems out there. I think it's more of a more efficient system, if you ask me. So, when it comes to an attack, it's very simple. You're going to add your attack bonus. You can see I have mine here, plus 20. Now, if I was being attacked, let's say my attacker has rolled a 67. I have to defend myself against that. I have to try to get below this number. So I decide I'm going to parry the attack. So I'm going to roll my dice. I'm going to call this, I got a 59. But with my parry bonus, I get a plus 10, which is going to take that down to a 49. A 49, I have successfully parried his attack. Now, here's the little nuance, if you will, about that. When you do a parry, your weapons have hit points allotted to them. Now it's taken into consideration, even though you parried the attack, you do not take the damage. Your weapon does, however. So after parrying so many times, you can actually break your weapon, well, rendering it useless. Now let's say I wanted to do a simple, just straight on defense from his attack. I got my defense bonus right here. I got a plus 20. And I rolled a 70. Well, that's going to take me down to a flat 50. I have successfully blocked that attack. Now, when you do take damage, whether you're delivering damage or whether you're taking damage, at that point, a 20-sided die would be rolled. And once the 20-sided die is rolled, you would look here at this chart that they have, which is going to give you the layout of where the hit has hit. So for all humans, a 1 through a 4 is going to be your left leg. A 5 through 8 is going to be the right leg. 9 through 11 is going to be your abdomen. A 12 will be the chest. 13 through 15 will be the left arm. 16 through 18 will be the right arm. 19 through 20 will be the head. Each area is assigned hit points for that particular area. So, with the head of my character here, there is 6 hit points to the head area. If that attack, we'll say, so to speak, this is a 1d8 plus 1, 4 points. 4 points to the head, that's devastating. My character's not dead, but that's pretty devastating. The character's pretty wounded. But what if I had rolled an 8 plus 1? Or what if the character, because he doesn't have it, the elf doesn't, but my character here, Turin Barleen, he has a damage bonus of 1d6. So that same attack, let's say he rolled a 4, go back to that, that would be a 5, and with his damage bonus on a 1d6, adding another 3 would be 8. At that point, my character would be beheaded and he would be gone. That goes for the encounters as well. That's the cool thing I like about this system. When it comes to combat, it is very descriptive, and it is... Actually, let me just flip into a better book to show you some encounters and show you how that works. So you can see right here with the hit location, right? It's very cool. It works for them as well. Now, with this, you also have armor, and I'm going to explain armor a little bit there, and try to wrap this video up because I think it's probably been long enough explaining this, but So you have the option to, monsters have natural armor, and you can buy and equip armor. When you look at the armor, this is how many points of damage the armor will absorb. Now, once the point damage is above that, at that point, you start taking damage off of the hit points of that particular area that has been hit. Now, don't get confused in thinking particularly where you're focused on certain areas. All creatures, including your characters, have a maximum number of hit points. How they determine this is when you go into your actual hit point area. I'm going to, there it is. So once you actually get into the hit points, right, you look at your totaled up hit points. I explained that a little earlier in the video. That's going to be your con ability plus the other abilities you would use to give you your final hit points, and you'd look at it. Let's say your character was pretty tough and you had 20 hit points right here. You would go down this table and it would tell you you got 7 hit points for each leg, 7 hit points for your abdomen, 8 hit points for the chest, 6 hit points for each arm, and then of course 7 hit points for the head. And how it figures it out, like if you sustain substantial damage to the head, the chest area, or the abdomen, your character is going to pretty much die. You're going to have a very short amount of time to be able to administer medical attention, spells, healing, what have you, and if you don't, your character will be dead. Now, these other areas, your legs, your arms, it is quite possible in combat for your character or the encounters to lose a limb in combat. So those are some of the very cool things that I have to admit I do like about the system. Now, you have a basic idea of how the combat works, defense works, armor works, the hit point system works, the skills work, and how the abilities add into all of them. The last thing I'm going to talk about for this video that I really, I love this, and as a matter of fact, that's where I learned this, was from this game system, and I incorporated it into all my RPGs because it is just such a simple, straightforward system. So, encumbrance. You can, how some systems have this mathematical equation you use, everything has a particular weight, you add it up, and then you decide your character can only carry this much for their strength. Some people like that. Some people, I guess if you're figuring out right down to the very last gold coin that your character can carry before they can no longer move, hey, that's cool if you want to do that. This system does something quite different. I love it, and I use it for all my RPGs. And that is, look at your strength ability score. If you have a strength ability score, can't talk tonight, of 15, you can carry 15 items. Now, what do they mean by 15 items? Does it mean your character can carry 15 trebuchets? No. Your character, counting your weapons as well, can carry 15 items. Now, your backpack can count as one item, and the items that you put inside your backpack, and as they explain it, we're talking about what you would consider a reasonably light item. Okay, flint and steel would be a very light item in your backpack. So it'd probably be one of those things you wouldn't count against one of the items that you carried. You would just count that as part of your backpack. But if you got into, let's say, you're carrying a barrel of mead, right, for your long adventure. Well, that would count as one item. That's going to be pretty heavy. But so it's pretty cool how the game system does it. I like that about this, and I really, yeah, I look forward to getting into this and getting some gaming done. So, I hope you folks like this so far.
All right, my friends, there you have it. That is RuneQuest. I kind of wanted to do that introduction and get that out there. So, as I get into the gameplay and I'm making videos and I'm uploading them and doing all that, you'll know where I'm at. You know where I'm coming from. You're going to have a basic idea of how the system works. And I will say it's been a while since I played this game system, so I'm guessing the first game session is going to be a huge refresher course for me. But really, all in all, it's a very simple system. It's very easy to pick up. It's very simple to make characters. As a matter of fact, it kind of reminds me of basic D&D too, where character creation took you like 10 minutes at the most. But that was kind of based on basic D&D is pretty ruthless, and your characters die pretty fast. So, yeah. With that being said, anyways. Moving forward, if you like this video, maybe you stumbled upon my channel recently. Maybe, with the state of things, the way things are going right now, I don't care what part of the world you're probably living in. I may be wrong with this because I'm in the U.S., but other parts of the world, every time we turn on the news here, you're just hearing that this COVID thing is just ramping back up for the winter. It's getting worse. They're now talking about lockdowns again. And I know for a lot of you out there, this has been just a huge life-changing event, particularly if you've been used to playing in groups at your local game store, and maybe you're not able to do that anymore, and you're exploring the solo aspect of gaming. Welcome on in. I'm hoping maybe this video will kind of help you along a little bit, particularly with the solo way of how I do it, asking yourself these questions, how you're going to set up your game, how you're going to run them. It helps you, and it helps you at that point have a focal point of this antagonist. The point of the antagonist in the solo gaming is to be able to keep that story moving forward. And a comment, somebody that has just recently got into solo gaming, just recently subscribed, and he asked us a question. He says, hey, I'm having a really hard time with mechanics, and I had answered him, and it was on my last video, that Temple of Elemental Evil 8, and like I explained to him, any game system you get into, when you first start out solo, it can be very daunting. You can get buried underneath the mechanics very quickly. Some of the things that I suggested to him, I'm going to touch on a little bit here as well in closing of this video. And that is, start out small. Ask yourself those questions about your game world. Who is the antagonist? Have a good outline of that antagonist. What are the effects? Is it a person? Is it a place? Is it a thing? What effect does it have on your game world? What brought your characters to this point to be able to step up and say, hey, we're willing to go after this and take this thing out, have you? And what is the payoff going to be? Are they going to get monetary value out of it, such as gold or property, or perhaps status, or maybe rare artifacts, or more spells, or what have you? All them questions that, what are the rewards going to be if they take this antagonist down? The other thing is, if you're starting out solo, and I'm talking to the new subscribers here that are just coming in. Like I said, if you want to scratch that itch of wanting to play some tabletop role-playing games, and you want to get into that a little bit further, when you start out, limit yourself, try one character, maybe two at the most. When it comes to your encounters, have about 3 encounters. And have those, all your details already fleshed out, whether it's on a piece of paper. If you're like me and you like to use sticky notes and put them in the book so you can just flip right to them. However you want to do that. And then at that point, it's going to be easy for you to deploy them quickly. It's not going to take away from gaming. You're going to find solo gaming, when you play in a group, you're depending on the game master, dungeon master, to explain everything to you, to set up them encounters. You as the player are just at that point engaging in the storyline, and your decisions are altering the storyline and the events, if you will. When you play solo, you don't have that. But that's a cool thing because of the fact that you can alter and take that story anywhere you want. You can, at that point, adjust the power levels, or how do I put this, through background, or however you want. Make your characters as strong or as weak as you want. Make the encounters as strong as weak as you want. Fine tune it and adjust it to the way that you enjoy it. Last but not least, I think one of the most common questions I am asked, oh man, a lot of times, is how do you know? Because when you start out solo gaming, the one thing I think everybody asks themselves, and it's this doubt, it's this nagging little voice you hear in the back of your head, and that is, how do I know I'm doing this right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? There's one simple answer to this. That answer is, if you're having fun, you're doing it right. That's what it's about. It's about having fun. So, starting out solo, maybe you just stumble upon this video and you're looking to get into solo RPG play. That's what I would suggest for you to do. Limit the amount of game mechanics, if you will. And what I mean by that is simplify some of your lists. You can go to your game master book or DM guide, or however, whatever system you're playing, and rather than piling over them pages, tune it. Maybe you have a small table of like 20 things in your world, 20 magical artifacts, if you will, in your world that your characters may or may not find within the course of however many game sessions you're going to play. And have those already on a table and set up in front of you. On a randomized table, you roll the dice, and that's what they find. I suggest that with traps. I suggest that with everything you do. Make yourself a small, detailed little table list. Now, I've been solo gaming for a very long time, so for me, I rely less and less and less on handwritten tables, and a lot of stuff I will, okay, I'm going to use this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to throw this in here, and I'm going to do that. So I think with this video, it's been quite long enough, and I think I'm going to end it right there. If you liked the video, click the like button. If you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button, followed by the bell icon. Every time I upload a brand new video, you will get notified so you don't miss one. All right, my friends, this is Artichokedip, signing off.